Thank you for joining in on the show today, The Millionaire Network Marketer. I am so excited to have our guest, David Norrie, on with us today. He runs a very successful speaking program called SpeakUp on his website. And since we are in a business, relationship marketing business, it's important for us to communicate appropriately with people that they can hear our message, and also for us to just have better relationships in general. David has a bachelor's degree in communications and sociology from Florida State University, and he recently has become a #1 best-selling author for his contribution in the book of Faith into Abundance. So I know I am so excited to introduce to you and have David Norrie on. Let's go ahead and start. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am so excited that David Norrie from Socially Speaking is joining us on the show. And welcome, David.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I'm excited for you to help us learn how to communicate better and speak in a way that we can be heard and understood. Tell us about your recent launch of your website, your program, just a little overview. We'll get into some of the other questions in a few minutes.
Okay, so basically what I wanted to do is I saw a need for people to really branch out with their personality. I think everybody has this idea of this ideal life that they want, right? We have it in our minds, but so many people are content to push it back or look at it through other people who are succeeding rather than take the action and do the things themselves. So I decided to have this Socially Speaking, which is basically a commitment to personal growth. And how I would describe it is it's your brand, right? Because we're all a brand. That's the first thing I try and tell people is, you know, you might say, well, I don't know what my brand is. Well, that's what we have to discover. Mm-hmm. And your brand is who you are, what your core convictions are, what's in your heart, what you want to show to the world. It doesn't necessarily mean you have a product to sell. It means you want to sell yourself both personally in your personal relationships and certainly in whatever work environment you may have. So I want people to become more proficient speakers, but at the same time, I want them to become more proficient in listening, because the best speakers often are the best listeners. And what I'll do is help what I say unleash. I want to unleash their personality, the full spectrum of it, so they could have more confident conversations. So last year I had 3 beta test groups. This really started out as something that by chance with some friends and people I worked with. And it went so well and I got such great feedback, I said, let me do it again. And I did it again. And then the 3rd time, I got people from all different walks of life, and I kind of asked different people to be in this beta test group to see how they liked it and if it added value to their particular profession. And sure enough, it did. So after those 3 beta test groups, I spent the next 8 months really taking my notes from those groups and saying what worked best, and then building the website so I can attract people and they could see the framework of what to expect, and then just the launch. And so far, it's been fantastic.
Well, congratulations on that. And you said a couple of things that are very important for those listening. A lot of the people listening want to develop their own brand and, you know, maybe have followed internet marketers and that type of thing, and they're not sure how to come out with that first product. Mm-hmm. So you took an intriguing approach. You took people you already know that were in a space to speak, or needed the service that you would like to launch, and had those beta groups and actually had live feedback from them of this worked well, this might not have worked so well, and then actually launched it as a product and have actually not only filled your class but also had a waiting list for the next session. So I think that's great, and I think it makes me even more excited for you to share with us today on, you know, creating that brand. You know, even if someone doesn't exactly have a product to sell right now, just realizing that they are their own brand. So any of the communications that they have with people they encounter are building more of that know, like, and trust factor, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So society has kind of evolved with how we communicate. You know, we're less likely to pick up a phone and call somebody. We're more likely to jump on Facebook Messenger or leave a post on someone's wall of social media. It's really that instant, just text messaging and that type of thing. So tell me, how do we make those deeper connections with people with that evolution?
Yeah, so what you're saying is it's evolving technologically, correct?
Yes.
But we are regressing a little bit in terms of our personal communication. And the answer to that is yes. So how do we make it easier? First of all, we have to embrace the fact that we can't go back, okay? So look, there's a lot of people out there who are going to resist this completely. And what I would tell those people is don't resist completely. You got to kind of adapt yourself. And you got to kind of find a way. People communicate now more by a feel rather than by direct words. Is this the best way? Not sure, but we have to adapt. So like you said, they're giving people the thumbs up. They're giving people emojis. They're maybe sending tiles. It's ironic that I said some thumbs up because I think the thumbs up is one of the surest ways you can tell somebody that you don't give a crap about what they're saying. And I try to never use it. Now, some of the other emojis I like, but the thumbs up I have a problem with because you can't even say anything in response. It's like, I heard you and here you go. Right? Where do we go from there?
Right. There's no dialogue.
So how do we evolve into this? Well, we evolve into it, and your brand really is what's at your core values. What do you care about? And then really it's about the discipline to take a little extra time and invest in people and what they're saying, and the listening part comes in, and then you're better able to communicate with them. And then you got to realize everybody has like their love language of communication. Some people may be great people, fantastic people, but they don't have a lot of time or they don't like to be bothered. Or some people like me just have so much that is running through their head on a daily basis. They call the squirrel syndrome, and they're thinking so much that you may think they're not really connecting with you, but it's just a matter of fact is everything's running through their brain at one time, and they're trying to differentiate where to send their attention. So what do? We kind of become a jack of all trades, and then we do our best to really find out what's at the heart of the matter. And once you find out what the communication is, you can decide, is this something that needs my an in-person meeting? Is this something that needs more of my emotion? Is this an instance where I need to listen more? And certainly, not just sending an emoji, because it's just like I use a lot of analogies. If somebody in your circle has a birthday and you give them the old happy birthday, what is that saying? It's putting them in a list of importance, really, on what they mean to you. Happy birthday, thank you. Now, if you could write up a message, you could do a quick video. This is great. You take out your iPhone. Hey, Steve, how you doing? I know it's your birthday today. I just wanted to say, have a wonderful day, and then you send it. So that's the human connection. It's not the same maybe as calling them, but it's a human connection. You cared enough to make a short video. They see your face, they see your emotion, and then you send it to them. So I think there's a happy medium.
I like that. And it is, a lot better than just sending, a heart emoji or a message that sends a bunch of hearts, but the person can't really, see, feel your influx, your emotion and everything that goes along with that. So there's definitely a difference. I think it's a good way to assess, what to do next.
Yeah, a happy medium. Yep.
Yeah, there is a happy medium. How does one create those deeper connections of the know, like, and trust? On building that brand, you mentioned people can tell what your core values are. So really whether it be you have a website or an online presence someplace, people really have to be able to tell what you're about and what you're not about. Right? So how do, when people just first meet you and just land on your page or land on your website, how do we give that know, like, and trust factor?
Okay. So I'm a big believer in there's not a lot of real geniuses out there that are coming up with new ideas or new ways. There's people that are collecting a lot of information And some of it is regurgitating the same things that we already know.
Mm-hmm.
Let's face it, guys, those of you who are listening, you know, you've read self-development books. You're like, aha, that's what I need.
Mm-hmm.
And then you read it and you're like, wait, this is something that's basic. This is something I've heard 100 times. So what I'm going to tell you right now is something you've probably heard before, but I'm going to remind you. You get the know, like, and trust factor from the easiest things that you're already doing, but you're not doing them often enough, or you're not paying attention to them. And the first thing is this: it's a smile. It's the easiest way to know, like, and trust somebody. So many of us aren't paying attention to the fact that we're not smiling enough. When we initially meet somebody, when somebody's talking to us, right? It's as easy as that. The second one, calling somebody by name. Mm-hmm. Now, I know this is not easy for some people. I am one of them. I am terrible with names. You might be one of those people saying, well, I'm horrible with names. It's okay. People want you to be honest and real. So if you've met somebody 2 or 3 times and you still don't remember their name, make a joke out of it. Hey, you're going to kill me. I still don't know your name, but please, that's just me. I'm bad at it. Please tell me again. Mm-hmm. And then what happens? 8 out of 10 times, they're going to say, oh my God, me too. Thank you. What was your name? So, but by using their name over and over again, right, Lisa?
Yes.
They're going to feel more comfortable with you. Now, the third thing is one thing I want you to, it's kind of an iffy thing, because if you just meet somebody, but touch is the third part of it. So some of you guys might be saying, if I've just met somebody, how am I going to touch them?
Right.
Am I going to be weird? Am I going to be perverted? Especially if it's a relationship between a male and a female. But what I mean by touch is, you know, the handshake, a firm handshake. Sometimes it's the second hand on the hand that just lets them know that you mean a lot. Sometimes it's on their shoulder. Some people are very comfortable with giving hugs right away. Mm-hmm. So a smile, using their name, a hug is one thing to really establish that know, like, and trust factor. But the other thing I think is really big is the BS factor. People, forgive me for saying this, but people nowadays, I've realized, have their BS detector on full blast. Mm-hmm. We're being hit with so much of it on a daily basis. Everybody's crushing us with this stuff that we just know is not real. Mm-hmm. So if you want people to like you, if you want people to know you, and you have to keep it real. And if you keep it real long enough, you're going to establish that pretty quick, because some people can go right off the bat. Right. You know people right now in your personal life that you've met that right off the bat, you're like, this person's real. And I like them. Come into my circle. So that's my best advice. Awesome.
That is great advice. And you're right. We're, faced with so many ads and, different things, politics and all these things that create distrust. The BS meters are always on. Yep. And you have to differentiate yourself away from that by having that person be able to see you. As well as, like, if they can't see who you are, they're not going to be able to hear you either, because they're just going to actually have part of that shut off.
Exactly. So one of the questions I'll ask people in my initial interview with them when they enter my program is, how would you describe yourself in one word? And that's kind of a generic question, right? Everyone, okay. And I'll get things like authentic, compassionate, right? Mm-hmm. General responses. But I take it one step further. I go back to the branding statement. And I say, if you're authentic, Giselle, because that's my person I was interviewing today, her name is Giselle. I said, Giselle, if you're authentic and you know that, but that's your brand and that's what's in your core values here, your job then is to make sure that when I ask somebody, what's Giselle like, that they're saying authentic, just like that, or compassionate, just like that, whatever your thing is. Now, your other part of branding yourself is to make sure that you might have to remind them. You might have to tell them. And you're not going to say, hey, my name is Giselle, I'm compassionate. That's false. What you have to do is be creative. Keep up that same brand on your social media when you talk to people. So that way, hey, that's Giselle, she's compassionate. Mm-hmm. It's just reminding people with your branding on a consistent basis. And I think what happens is a lot of people give up too quick. Mm-hmm. They start to brand themselves for a month, and then all of a sudden, their attention gets diverted in another direction, and then all of a sudden they've lost their brand and they have to refocus and start rebranding again. So that's why I tell people, do not rush into it. Give yourself a month, and don't just think about it in the times when you're talking to your friends. when you go to sleep at night,
Mm-hmm.
when you wake up in the middle of the night, when you wake up in the morning, those times when you're by yourself, when you're having your morning coffee, what is your core? What wakes you up every morning? That's your brand. And then how am I going to tell people that's me?
Mm-hmm. I think with a lot of the social media platforms, there's the ability to do that, to communicate like who you are with these live streams and everything. But there is a certain amount of people, and myself included, who are introverted and have this internal resistance on proceeding to do so. You can see the benefit of doing it.
Yeah.
But you still have this resistance of, but I'd have to put myself out there fully. So what would you advise to the introverts in your class about being able to create that consistency?
I get that a lot. So this is a big one because most people are introverted to some degree that I'm talking to. I say just do it. And again, not a very intricate answer, but what you mean is just do it, meaning you have to practice. So in my group, I give them, again, that safe environment. They know that if they're posting a video in there for practice or if they're talking, we are under what we call the tree of trust, right? That I usually say at the beginning of the group, hey, we have to play full out. So let's all agree upon that on the first session. And you guys are going to be responsible for, I wouldn't say coddling, but you are going to have to coddle sometimes. You're going to see people in here that are struggling. You're going to see introverts that are struggling to get stuff out. So what we have to do is address it and be honest with them. Mm-hmm. And then at the same time, know that, look, the hardest thing for any audience, and whenever you're speaking, you have an audience, whether it's an audience of one or an audience of thousands or millions on social media, you have an audience. So the worst thing you can do as a speaker is have the audience really worry for you. Mm-hmm. If you show the fear and you show the trepidation, then your audience is going to be like, oh my God, and they're scared for you. So mm-hmm. I say, let the air out of the room. Come out with wherever you're at and say, hey, this is who I am. And then just keep practicing like anything else. You'll get better. Mm-hmm. Here's the other part. Lisa, what you want to do is you're going to have to watch yourself on tape. You're going to have to listen to yourself on audio. For most people, it's like nails on a chalkboard, right? Nobody wants to hear themselves because like, oh, I sound terrible. Mm-hmm. And then they get really picky. They start to nitpick. So I remind the people in my class that, hey guys, I don't care who you are. If you're one of the best speakers in your company, if you're one of the top performers, when you get off a podcast, when you get off a teleconference call, when you get off of stage, you're automatically critiquing yourself. Did I connect? Was I good? Did I say anything that I didn't mean to say? So you got to take that self-doubt out and just say, I'm going to fall forward. I'm going to keep doing this and I'll get better. But the key is tape yourself. Mm-hmm. Because that's going to do two things. When I first started taping myself, it went both ways. There was parts of me that said, oh God, you know, the natural thing, man, that didn't sound good. I didn't want it to come out. But then again, there was the flip side where I said, hey, that's not bad. David, you did a pretty good job. And what that does is it builds your confidence. So now you're critiquing your performance and you're growing. Mm-hmm. What it is the people that step out there the first time and it's like you went ice skating and you fell down. Are you going to go leave the ice skating rink and say, I'm never coming back because I fell down? You got to expect the bumps and bruises. Mm-hmm.
When you were just starting out and you were recording yourself, did you just have some trial ones at home? You're like, let me try this out before I actually put it out there.
Yeah, you know what? I did. I tried it with just my one-on-one calls and some of the things that I was doing. And then I got to some of the ones where maybe a three-way call that I was doing. And then eventually where I got into bigger groups. And you want to play the video back. And don't get me wrong. There is a natural resistance to that. It's like you want to watch it, but at the same time you don't. It's like, you know, it's like a scary movie. Do I want to see this? And you're kind of watching it through your fingers. Okay, it's not bad. Oh, that part wasn't good. So we're all human. Mm-hmm. And look, if you really are passionate about what you're doing and you want to get better at it, then you got to be willing to put in the work. That's it.
That's true. There's a lot of people listening that really resonate with being introverted or too shy. but they're also, trying to do sales of some sort. That may be online business, digital business. It may be network marketing. It may be some form of their own brand. Either way, they have to sell. And as you stated, when we first started talking, you are your own brand, and really you're selling yourself. So what would you advise the people that are getting that resistance, even from people, I don't think I can do this. I'm not good at sales, or I'm too introverted. I'm too shy to talk to other people like you would be able to. Like they don't see themselves able to do it.
Well, I would say, first of all, whether you like it or not, you're presenting every day. You're selling every day, unless you're a hermit and you're staying in your house, correct?
Correct.
If you're staying in your house, then you're not selling. But as soon as you step 1 foot outside of that door, you're selling. You're presenting. So you're doing it whether you like it or not. You might as well be good at it. So when I see people, I say, look, make sure you know what you're doing. We can't all be on full blast 100% of the time. We can't all be looking perfect and well-spoken 100% of the time. We have bad days. We have good days. We have sad days. We have days when things just aren't going right. But you have to pay attention to those times. And you have to tell yourself, look, I'm not gonna be afraid to be the person I always wanted to be. I had a guy that I was talking to today, and he said there was a time when I couldn't even get out of bed. And there was a time where I never thought I'd be doing what I'm doing today. And just to take your course was a huge step for me in this direction. It was a hard decision to make, to just press that button and say yes. So I said to him, I go, imagine how many people out there need you. Imagine how many people out there feel that way. But what did you do? You did it anyway. Mm-hmm. So it's the times when we feel the most resistance that we have to act. What I would say to people is, don't put so much pressure on yourself. There's this feeling that I see so many of my students talk about, that they need to be perfect or they need to be extremely eloquent. When people really respect real more than anything. So part of my background is I was a journalist for probably 25 years, okay? I covered everything from relationships to sports to health and wellness. And I worked for some of the largest newspapers in the country and magazines. And I learned a lesson early on, and this is so valuable, that when you are writing, you're really writing for an 8th grade education level. So those people out there that think they have to be perfect and they think they have to use big words, and what you're really trying to do is communicate effectively. And it was the guys that I used to work with that used all these, 12 and 15 letter words. I read their stuff and I'm like, it's boring. I tossed it away because you're not being real. You're not talking to me in a language that I understand. People want you to take the filter out, but then add more personality in.
Right.
That's the other thing I would tell you. I would say, guys, make sure you're adding your personality in. We have this 2-dimensional screen in front of us right now. Mm-hmm. And you know how they say there's this old adage in television that the television adds 10 pounds. Well, we're not talking about that anymore. We're talking about the way we communicate takes away our personality, some of it. Mm-hmm. Right now, when I'm talking to you, I have to be passionate. I have to use my body language. I have to get in here and show you my face. I have to pause and make sure that you guys know that what I'm saying is important. And it takes a full gamut. So if you're an introvert, look at yourself in the mirror and then get over it. Mm-hmm. Tell yourself you're no different than anybody else. This is all stuff that you can learn. It's not a gift you're born with. Sure, some people are born with fantastic personalities. Mm-hmm. But you can learn to be a more effective communicator. You can learn simple things that will help you bring more success into both your private life, like I said, with your spouse, with your kids and your family, your neighbors, and your public life at work. But if you're not working on yourself, then you'll find yourself capped off at a certain dollar amount. Mm-hmm. You'll find yourself capped off at a certain type of person that you can bring into your love life. You'll find yourself capped off at the relationship that you can have with your children and your parents and your brothers and sisters. Because like anything else, it's only going to give you what you put into it. So it's a learning process.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good point, that it extends into all those areas. So say if people believe in the law of attraction and everything, and they throw up their dream house on their vision board and where they want to travel to and their ideal partner in life and, the kids and the house, the white picket fence and the whole thing. And, it relates back to communicating, because if we're not sending those right signals and communication, spoken and non-spoken, then we're not going to draw those things back into us. Would you agree?
Right. Yeah, personality goes such a long way. Mm-hmm. And if you really concentrate on it, I would promise to everybody out there listening and all the people that come into my course is give it some work, concentrate on it, and watch your life blossom. Mm-hmm. Watch things come into your life. We talk about the law of attraction, which is true, but then you talk about really adding to your personality, adding to your vocabulary and the things that you use to communicate. And then you watch how many people are coming into your life. Some of the best times that I've had have been with people that I don't even know, that I've met somewhere, and then all of a sudden we become best friends. And how does that happen? Because I'm not afraid to fail. Mm-hmm. And then it all comes back to this one word, is confidence. We got to have the confidence to talk to people and be confident in who we are. I see a lot of people, we all knew the guy, I'm going to use males in this scenario, guys, because you all knew the guy in high school that wasn't the best looking guy. He wasn't, he wasn't a jock. He might have been just even a little bit out of sorts, and yet he had this confidence, and he had this ability with the women because he wasn't afraid to be who he was. He took who he was and said, this is who I am. This is me, and I'm going to be the most confident me I can. I used to watch a lot of Seinfeld, and I always go back to George Costanza, who is probably the most self-deprecating character ever in any TV show ever. And he was always beating himself up. And you look at him and he's just a character. But you could take a guy like George Costanza, and he, through his sense of humor, which is probably in real life, because he still looks the same in real life, he's still George Costanza on the outside, mm-hmm. But he's become an actor because he's probably wildly confident. Mm-hmm. Take a guy, if any of you guys know Adrian Brody. Adrian Brody is an actor, and he's what's become a sex symbol, and he's got a very distinct, what you call this big nose. And I always think to people, imagine Adrian Brody in his first couple of casting calls for movies or film or commercials. Imagine how many times Adrian Brody said, I got to get a nose job. I'm never going to make it in Hollywood. I'm never going to be a leading man. But something inside of him must have said, you know what, this is who I am. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, look what it does. It almost becomes his calling card. It almost becomes what makes him sexy and unique to women. He's got this distinct nose. So we have to take whatever we feel is our weakness, mm-hmm. and let's just flip the table on it and be so wildly confident that we can turn even our weaknesses into our greatest, advantage.
I love that. I was thinking of the actor Danny DeVito, mm-hmm. when you were mentioning that, because if you take somebody that's half the height of most of the actors he had to perform against, and, not looking like society's...
There's no Brad Pitt, right?
Right. No Brad Pitt there. But he had the confidence to go for these major roles and landed them.
Everybody has something about them that they need to bring to the surface. So what I say is pick that thing and make it a 10 out of 10. Pick the one thing about you that you are confident in, and then bring it to the surface. Because the worst thing you can do is be invisible. Mm-hmm. Once you're invisible, you have no chance at anything.
Mm-hmm. It's true. It is true. So we all have strengths. Mm-hmm. We all have weaknesses. How do we take what we're strong at and bring those personal strengths into communicating and lead with those things instead of, leading with some weakness or that mm-hmm. insecurity?
Yeah, it's really a learned thing. It's like just like you're going to teach your kid how to do something, or you're teach a dog how to do something. It all comes back to repetition. It all comes back to really the ability to stay focused. You know, we live in a world right now where everybody wants the quick rewards. I want it now. I have a remote control. I want to change the TV. I want the weight to be lost immediately. I don't want to invest time meeting people. I want to go online and meet somebody now. I don't want to wait.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, if that's your attitude, you're not going to be successful with it. You have to have a long-term goal. That's why I tell people, don't rush into anything. Ask yourself, do a self-evaluation. One of the first things we do in my course is an external self-evaluation, which means I make people go out and find 2 or 3 people, one probably from their business, professional life, one from their home life, and maybe I never use the spouse because I don't want to get in any trouble. But I like to get them and say, look, I am on a self-development project, which I'm very serious about. Now, you can help me by being completely honest with me, and I need to know a couple things. One of my favorite questions that I have my students ask other people is, if I were at a party and I left, what would people say about me when I left? How would they describe me? You know, because that's the easiest thing to kind of envision. Mm-hmm. And I've had some people say, they'd say I was invisible. Some people would say, oh, I was the obnoxious guy. Some people would say I was fun, but they didn't really know who I was. So once you start to get these external references for how people view you, and especially you have to emphasize, I need you to be honest, because nobody's going to want to be honest with you, especially your friends. If your friend released and said, I need you to tell me what you really think about me. What are my weaknesses? That's a big order for you. It's very hard. In today's day and age, we're blowing smoke up people's butts all day long. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to be honest. But when you think about your politicians, right? I always go back to politics because what does everybody say when they want a politician? I need them to be honest. I don't care if they can't speak or if they're a jerk. I want my politicians to be honest. I want them to tell it to me like it is. So we respect that quality in people. Mm-hmm. We want people to tell us like it is. We want our boss to give it to me straight. Am I doing good? I don't want you to blow smoke up my you-know-what. Mm-hmm. So that's what we need. You can be a great friend by doing it with a smile and saying, look, you have to phrase it. You can't just come out and be blunt. But you have to say, look, Lisa, I really think that, at first when I met you, you might have been like this. And I know you're not like that, but that's how people might be perceiving you. So you might want to pay more attention to that. Mm-hmm. And as a person who is really involved in their self-development, you have to be a big enough person to receive that and say thank you. And if you feel like it matches your core identity and they're right, okay. If you feel like, well, I don't really believe that, let me get some other opinions, then do that. Mm-hmm. We have to be honest with ourselves. Because there's a lot of people there that have been walking through life and nobody's had the guts to tell them that they're a real horse's ass in a social situation. And you would want somebody to tell you that, wouldn't you?
I would. I'd want you to tell me if I had salad in my teeth also.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great analogy. People need to know that.
You don't let somebody walk into this room full of socialites and you have like this kale just like embedded into there. No.
And then you go home and you beat yourself up the rest of the night because nobody told you. And you feel how many people noticed that didn't say anything.
I know, didn't say one thing.
Exactly.
I'd rather be like, would you like me to tell you if you had a sticker on your back?
Yeah, some toilet paper hanging off your shoe.
Leave the house that way.
You gotta let people know these days.
I know, and it does create more trust. So how do you enhance the ability to attract, influence, and connect the people that you want to? Because good and bad, you're going to attract people into your life. And with being your own brand and trying to attract, somebody you'd want to go on vacation with, or somebody that you'd actually not only have as a client, but you'd want to become friends with maybe. How do you use your communication to attract that person?
Well, that's a good question, because one of the questions I ask my students in my course is, I say, would your friends want to go on a cross-country drive with you? Or better yet, I say, picture somebody that you wouldn't want to go on a cross-country drive with. And everybody immediately goes, it doesn't take them long to think of that one person. Mm-hmm. So how do you attract people? I think it comes back to confidence. Now, you have to always be reinvesting in yourself. Rather than pouring money into frivolous things that are only going to buy you temporary satisfaction, pour money into stuff that really is about self-development. Whether that's a course like mine, okay. Maybe it's a wardrobe. Maybe it's investing in your hair. Maybe it's investing in something that really allows you to be organized at home. Mm-hmm. What you need to do is realize that people are judging us immediately. We'd all like to live in this beautiful world where people don't judge people by the way they look or present themselves. But let's be honest, the world doesn't work that way. So I'm not saying you have to be a size 0. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying you have to be 6'7" Tony Robbins with this deep booming voice in order to be effective. But what I'm saying is you better be paying attention to your appearance, how you present yourself, and not just when you're on like we are now. Mm-hmm. But if you're on a Zoom call with 40 people and you're sitting there in your bed and you're slouched over and your hair's a mess and you're wearing a t-shirt with stains on it, guess what? 39 other people are looking at you and judging you right now. Mm-hmm. Okay? It's just the world we live in. If you don't want to do that, then don't be on there. Mm-hmm. But invest in yourself. Go out and buy yourself some confident clothes that you look good in. Go out and buy yourself some power outfits. And I really direct this question or this answer to the people who maybe, let's say, graduated 40 years ago and they're trying to do business. Mm-hmm. Don't have the same hairstyle you wore at your prom in 1975. Don't wear the same clothes. It doesn't mean you have to go out and try and look like a trendy teenager. Mm-hmm. It means, remember, your appearance has to transcend generations. And that goes for the young person. If you're going to be young and you're going to go out there in some of these styles, you're going to have to make sure that you're presentable enough, and maybe you make up for it with your vocabulary, your words, and your actions to attract a person who is in their 40s, 50s, or 60s. Mm-hmm. Because in this day and age, your demographic shouldn't matter. I don't care what color you are, what race you are, what gender or age you are, or what sexual orientation you are. You have to be able to appeal to all people. Mm-hmm. And be able to reach out and find a commonality that's going to help you carry on a conversation with that person, and not just, hey, how's the weather there?
Right.
Find something deeper than that. And that's
right. That's great. So we have talked a lot about, how communication helps with business and our presentation and connecting even with sales and that type of thing. But, where great communication can start is that in the house. Mm-hmm. And that's with your significant other. That's with your spouse. That's with your kids. That's with your family. So, tell me how that relates to the foundation of communicating and how it translates into how we communicate with other people.
Oh, good. Well, it's a great question. It's so important. And really, where do you begin and end your day every day?
At home.
With those people at home, with your spouse, with your kids. That's where your core values come back into play. It allows you to be yourself. But so many of us, myself included, we get wrapped up in business. We get wrapped up in our goals, in the endeavors we're working on, and then we can put our family on the back burner. We put our spouse on the back burner. I can't tell you how many times, and I hate to admit it, that my wife said, you got to put the phone down when it's just me and you, and I'm like, but babe, I'm working. I'm trying to make a living for the family. And she knows that too, because she's an entrepreneur and she does the same thing. And there's times when I've said the same thing to her. Hey, I need your attention, and I know you're doing business, but this is family time. So your communication really is most vital, I think, in the house. And how you talk to your spouse really matters for this reason. If your marriage is happy, then everything else is a lot better in good times and bad. But if things are rocky at home, even if things are going good outside the home, you don't want to come back. And it lends to your overall, peace of mind. Now, I know all marriages aren't going to work. It's just a fact. Statistics show that. But I think too many people aren't putting in the work. Mm-hmm. Again, we have that short attention span, or people want to give up. And look, that might be okay for your job. If you don't like a job, give up. Find something else you like. But when it comes to your love life, it's too hard to find somebody to be throwing it away that quick. Mm-hmm. And if you don't want to work at it equally, that's the key. It's really sad when you see one partner really wants to work at it and is willing to give everything, and the other one just doesn't feel the same way. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is it goes with your body. I've seen plenty of people in the fitness industry, when you're selling products to help make you look better, if one spouse isn't on board, then they're going to try and sabotage that person, the other spouse, because maybe it's going to make them feel worse about themselves. So you got to communicate. You got to find out their love language, and it's not always the same. My wife one time got offended because I didn't take out the recycling bin, and here I was trying to make sure that she was, getting home safe from where she was going to be. So to me, I thought I was doing the right thing. Here, I'm worried about your safety, babe. I want to, and she's worried about the recycling. Yeah, it wasn't that either one of us were wrong. We were just in different places at different times. Yeah, and different priorities, and that's going to happen. So the thing is, if you learn how to communicate, and if you're not good at speaking it, which a lot of people aren't, they forget how to speak to their spouse and be honest. Write it down. Write it down. Send them a letter. I know it sounds kind of weird. If you're in a house with somebody, you have to send them a letter. But whatever you can communicate, the more the better.
I agree. You've mentioned it a couple times that we've been together about the language of love. And there is a good book by Gary Chapman, The 5 Languages of Love. And I thought I'd bring it up since we mentioned a language of love, and a lot of people don't know how to assess that. There's actually a quiz in the back, and I'm sure you've taken it.
Yep.
And it determines, what matters the most to you. And one of the first dates I had with my now fiance is, I surprised him. I was like, I'm bringing you to Barnes & Noble. We're going to go take a quiz. I mean, it doesn't sound like a good date, but he was touched that, I could find out what his language was and what mattered to him. And so we exchanged each other's book to each other. And so you kind of have the crib notes on somebody, right? Like, especially at the beginning of a relationship, you kind of want to know, like, okay, what matters most to this person, so.
And that could evolve, I mean, they're always going to be at the core, like I think my wife was words of affirmation, or acts, a service, like, so she likes me to do things. And sometimes it evolves, especially if you've been together 10, 15, 20 years. The key, just like your personal development, the key is caring about it enough to work at it. That's the overlaying thing here, Lisa, is that people get lazy. They get lazy with their bodies. They get lazy with their business. They get lazy with their jobs and working on themselves. And they certainly get lazy with their marriages. Mm-hmm. They want to kick back and put it on cruise control. And the people that are most successful in life, the people who are most successful in love, are the people that realize that you always have to work at something and put the effort in order for it to be successful.
It's true. And you would know the most about that right now, because congratulations, you and your wife in the organization that you're in, were able to achieve millionaire status. And a lot of people listening to this show would love to achieve that. So can you give me a few things that you do consistently that created that for you over the past few years?
So you brought up the first thing, it's consistency. We've had so many struggles. We've moved in, it took us a little over 4 years, about 4.5 years to reach the millionaire status in our company. We've moved 5 times, and one of those was across country. The other one was up and down the East Coast. So major moves. We've had 2 children in that time period, and my wife's lost both of her parents during that time period. So we felt like we never really got a break, but we always kept our foot on the pedal. It wasn't always at full speed. This man behind me right here, Abraham Lincoln, one of my favorite sayings is, I may walk slowly, but I never walk backward. And what we have to realize is there's going to be things in your life that are going to creep in, real big life things, deaths in the family, sickness, maybe it's hurricanes, whatever it may be. What you have to do is push through, and that's why it's so important. If you don't have a spouse or a partner that you work with or that's really supportive, you have to find that person at work, that best friend who will push you when you need it. My wife's mom was on her deathbed, and literally she had days. And I don't want this to sound insensitive, but we really couldn't do anything else. We were in a holding pattern. We couldn't comfort her anymore. We were just waiting. And I said, babe, there's this piece of business we need to take care of. And at first she resisted. And I said, I care about your feelings. I care about your mom. But we're going to feel better about doing this if we get it done now. And there's nothing else to do but wait. And we're going to be setting an example for everybody else that enters our organization that, look, no matter what the obstacle is, you can overcome it. So we did, and it made a big difference. But there's things along the way that you're going to have to do to be consistent, and there's going to be times when you don't want to work when you're going to have to. And the last thing I'll say about it, it's like your brand, you're building it. If you do it for a little bit and then put it on the shelf and say, I'll come back and get it in a couple months, it's going to be dusty, and it might not work the same. Right. So never put it on the shelf. Always keep it within arm's reach and give it the attention that it deserves, because again, it's going to pay you in the long run.
That's great advice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have enjoyed having you on. So I know you told me at the beginning that your next program is full, but if there are people listening who really resonated with your message and they would like to look into joining your course, how do they reach you?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways. And what we'll do is, even though the next one's full, we're always starting new ones. So you'll just be in the group for the next one, and they always start within a couple months. So the site is sociallyspeaking.club. So I invite you all to visit the club, sociallyspeaking.club. The program inside is called SpeakUp. And you can reach me on Facebook, David Norrie, and you can reach me via email. It's David Norrie, 6 @gmail. So those are the best ways to get a hold of me.
Awesome. I will type it out and put it in the show notes as well. So
thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being on with us today. I've enjoyed it.
It's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you again, and much success to you and your podcast, and much success to everybody that is listening to this.